Amanda, I can only say I believe the force was with us in the last episode in a good way.
It had to be. Having Miles Doliak on to guide us through The Return of the Jedi was a blessing.
Yeah, you can tell it's a movie that really means a lot to him, right? And a lot of people feel that way, which is why we did it in the first place, because it's not one that has especially fond memories for us.
Well, yeah. I mean, like you said, special to him. I mean, there's a lot, like your husband. And
yeah,
your
for
kids,
sure. And my kids. Yeah.
And even though it doesn't have a special place, it's not as meaningful for me. It is meaningful for me in my childhood, like in nostalgia. Of being a big part of my childhood.
Yeah.
So, but we did it for our real fans.
That's
so
right.
Now this week, we're swapping intergalactic adventures for cocktails and charisma. Tom Cruise, oh boy, he is going to show us his high energy as a bartender, chasing big dreams in cocktail. Let's get this party started.
Let's do it.
I'm Amanda.
And I'm Missy. And this is Real Sisters Rewind.
Join us as we go back to the 80s.
Welcome back, Real fans. We're so glad you're here for another episode of Real Sisters Rewind Back to the 80s, the podcast for all of us who love revisiting the classics from that decade and believe that movies from back in the day were, well, just better. I'm Missy.
And I'm Amanda. Thanks for joining us. If you're loving what you hear, don't forget to give us a 5-star rating, subscribe, follow, and share the podcast with your fellow movie buffs. It helps us grow our community of real fans and keeps the nostalgia alive. Also, you can follow us on our Instagram at Real Sisters Rewind.
So good, sister. And it's just the two of us today, but we're going to have some fun with this one. You have some strong opinions. I'm getting the drift on that.
Yes. We probably need to pour ourselves a drink and make a toast.
Well, I've got my Diet Coke right here.
And I've got my coffee. So,
all right, real fans, let's shake things up and rewind to 1988. All right, Amanda, Cocktail was released on July 29th, 1988. That was the day after my 20th birthday. And if my memory is correct, I saw this movie on opening night with some friends from college. I remember loving it then. I was so excited to see it. I was such a big fan of Tom Cruise at this point because in 86 we had Top Gun and, some of his other great ones. But do you remember when you saw it the first time? Because I know you didn't see this rated R movie in theaters when you were 12 years old or almost 12.
I didn't. Well, I don't think I did.
Well, you definitely didn't see it in theaters.
Well, it could have, if like a mom had taken us or something, we could have gotten in. But this is what I was about to say. I feel like it was a lot harder to get in to see rated R movies at that time than now. I feel like it's a lot more.
And I think mom would have been a hard no matter what mom was taking you to see. A movie called Cocktail with sexy Tom Cruise that was rated R. It would have been a hard no.
Well, the only reason I'm saying that is because I don't remember specifically, but here's a story for you. I do remember seeing it when I was young because we had a good friend in our little group of girlfriends that their parents, I do not know how, but they always got the movies really quickly on VHS. They had it was like a mini Blockbuster in their cabinet in the living room. They had everything. And I feel pretty sure the first time I saw it was at her house. They had one of those really, really huge TVs. And I'm telling you, it was like as soon as the movie came out, they had it. So I don't know how that happened.
Well, if it's the family I'm thinking, it seems like they had connections for a lot of things. So
yes. Yeah. So anyway, we had I do think that was the first time I saw it.
Well, let's set the scene for what was happening that summer. Um, of course, the 80s have great movies. I mean, great music throughout. But number one on the charts was Hold On to the Nights by Richard
Oh,
Marx.
mm-mm.
Not a song I loved. I liked the number two song more. And it's funny because it's hard rock, and I'm not a hard rock girl, but it was Pour Some Sugar on Me by Def Leppard. Pour some sugar on me. I still love that
Oh,
song.
in the name of love. Such a good one. And it's funny because you would think you would have been the opposite, that you
I
would have been Richard Marx.
know.
I cannot stand Richard Marx. He oogs me out. Sorry, real fans, if there's any
I was going to say, be
hardcore.
sweet there, sister.
I can't. I can't with
Yeah,
Richard Marx.
I'm not
No.
a Richard Marx fan
But I
at
do
all.
love that Def Leppard song still.
Yeah.
Um, and we always, I feel like when TV comes up, we talk a lot about the Cosby Show. In the 80s, we saw a lot of family focused TV shows, like
Yes.
so many I can rattle off the top of my head. Uh, Family Ties, Who's the Boss, Cosby Show. Um, what was the one with the Seaver family with Kirk Cameron?
Na-na-na-na-na, without us, what would we?
No,
I
that
can't.
was Family
Oh, that was
Ties.
Family Ties. I don't know. I
Um,
can't think of it off the top of my
and we had
head.
Full House. I mean,
Yeah, it definitely
so
was
many.
the era of the
Yeah.
family comedy for sure.
But on the cover of TV Guide, they had a somewhat controversial cover. Didn't have any stars, just
Like
a statement.
no TV stars.
Right. It just
Oh,
had this statement across it in big letters, how TV is shaking up the American family. And it's so
oh,
funny with me thinking that, because thinking back on those shows, they were so like traditional family shows. But I guess if you really dug in, there were some, not quite as traditional as like the shows we saw, like Leave It to Beaver from the
right,
50s and 60s.
right. Yeah.
Um,
Well,
anyway, I just think that was funny.
yeah, it's funny that you say that because in People magazine that week, Michael Dukakis had officially been selected as the Democratic presidential nominee, and that was just a week before Cocktail hit theaters. And so he was on the cover, and it was like Kitty, because his wife's name was Kitty Dukakis, and the Duke. It
Uh-huh.
says he mows, he shops, he cooks, and he does the dishes. Barbara Bush, eat your heart out. So I don't really I guess he was the non-traditional dad husband.
Uh-huh.
But what I thought was interesting also on that magazine cover was two movies that we've talked about one. We're going to talk about the other one. We're on the cover. So at the top of the People magazine, you saw Prince Akeem and his beautiful wife as they were getting married in, I almost said trading places, coming to America. And
Yes. Yep.
yeah, the tagline was the sexy miss in Murphy's movie hit. So somebody thought he missed the mark on something. And then there was Roger Rabbit, and it said a few words from the real Roger Rabbit. And so Roger Rabbit came out about this time, and it was
A
very
big
much a
deal.
rage, and definitely a movie that we've got to cover. It's a movie I love.
Yeah, for sure. And we can maybe get a video clip of you doing the Roger Rabbit dance.
Yeah, stop making fun of me.
Um, two things I have to tell you really quick, and
Okay.
then we can get back to that. One, I thought of the show Growing Pains with Kirk Cameron.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry, I couldn't let
Love
it
that
go.
show. That was one of my favorites of those.
Me too. I
Yep.
loved that one. And the other thing I was going to say, Michael Dukakis, what a blast from the past. And do you remember that guy's eyebrows? Like,
Yes, I do.
oh my.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
were a character
That was
all on their
before
own.
manscaping was the thing, I guess.
I guess so. They were something. Um, I just remember that being synonymous with his name, his eyebrows. Well, meanwhile, gadgets were all the rage. Gadgets in the 80s were a big thing.
They were,
Walkman,
but I still love gadgets today.
yes, yes,
I love a
yes.
gadget.
You do, you do. And Walkman cassette players were everywhere, which we've talked about before. Eric certainly had his that he took everywhere. And compact microwave ovens were becoming household staples. What do you think that means? I
Well,
don't
I
know what
think,
that means.
well, it means that they were like trucks before. I mean, microwave ovens were so
We're
big.
huge.
They were huge and cumbersome and took up a lot of space. And so, you know, I would even say more than household staples, like apartment staples, like,
Ah,
people who were moving out of their house or moving into the dorm or apartments. Like the
they
idea
could
that you
take,
had this smaller microwave oven, which all of our microwave ovens now are compact compared to what
hmm
they were. So it was a big, it's like going from the brick phone of the, early 90s and late 80s,
to the big, to the
to
little
the
iPhone.
yeah, to the iPhone or to the flip phone. It was a big deal that you could get a smaller one now.
That makes sense. I sort of remember the bigger microwaves in my mind, but really just I guess I've experienced the smaller ones. Um, but a gadget that I don't think we've talked about yet are the VHS camcorders.
Oh, yes.
That those babies were, I mean, we had not had anything like that that you
No.
could just
And
record.
interestingly, the generation before us had like the big reel, like
Hmm.
they would use I could don't even know what it looks like actually, but they would use a camera somehow, and they had the big reels, and they would show the reels,
Uh-huh.
or they would take pictures and put them on the little
Uh-huh.
almost little slides, and it was the carousel that would show. Yes.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, when handheld camcorders came out, it was a big deal.
I mean, every event at your school, like parents were busting out, and these were the kind that were pretty big. I mean, they were smaller than like a TV camera, but you like held that baby on your shoulders.
Oh yeah, and it got heavy,
Like
but you weren't going to
it
miss
got
a moment now that you could capture it.
you're you are correct. And let me tell you, I loved nothing more than when I could talk mama and daddy into getting out our camcorder and letting me perform a
Girl, you
commercial.
loved to make commercials. I can still see it. Oh my goodness. If I could find the footage of you making your commercials where you were doing some type of like, it was for an exercise tape or something, and you were stretching your neck out and bulging your eyes and telling people to go buy this exercise tape you had on your little leotards. It was hysterical. And I'm sorry, but I would laugh in your face because it was so funny to me. And you took it so dang
So,
seriously.
mm, mm, mhm. Well, that's what I was going to say. Commercials and exercise videos. That's what I loved for them to film. But I
Shout out to
guess
Jane Fonda for
I
being
was going to say,
your
because that was the
influencer on that.
thing.
Yeah,
That was the thing, make exercise videos. And I did. Sadly, our tapes got ruined
I
in
know.
a flood,
In the flood, the hot water heater burst in Mom's house, and we lost those.
ruined
Oh,
them.
what I would do for those! And now, imagine kids now they have their parents' iPhone or Android. I don't understand people with Android, but I know you're out there. Shout out to you anyway. That they have the capabilities to do what we would have to charge the camera and get it out and plug it in and make sure you had tapes, and now
Oh, yeah.
they're able to capture so much, and parents are able to capture so much of their kids, and the kids will be able to grow up and see that. It's really cool.
Yeah.
So that was a good gadget to bring up, Amanda. That talk about nostalgia. That's a
Hmm.
good one. Well, we always have to talk about the fashion, and at this time, It was exactly what most people think of when they think of 80s fashion, right? It was the neon colors, it was the acid wash jeans. This isn't too far after I graduated high school. And Dana, my bestie from high school, had a pair of jeans that she acid washed, and the leg, on one leg, she did a big, like with sponges, like an 80, like an 8 and a 6 for 86, because that's when we graduated. They were so cool. So you had the acid wash jeans, and then there were these like oversized blazers that we would wear with like shoulder pads, and of course scrunchies. Although I still love a scrunchie, like when I'm washing
Uh,
washing my face. I still use
oh, yeah.
scrunchies. But then
Me
they
too. I
were
had
a
one in this morning.
fashion item. Now they're an in the drawer item for washing hair.
Exactly. It's funny you said that about Dana making the acid wash because I was going to ask you if you ever made your own acid washed
I did,
jeans.
but I was specifically coveting the 86 jeans. Did you?
Well, so there was one time, it was funny, everybody, because if you were in that time, you could buy them at the store, but it was
Right.
also, you could make your own. So there was a time, and it may have been right around this time actually, that my girlfriends and I were so excited because one of the moms, or a couple of the moms, were taking us to the Mississippi Coast Coliseum to a Bon Jovi concert
Oh my
on a school
gosh.
night, mind you. Like we were pumped. And I mean, this is back in the day of like living on a prayer, right? Like it was the
Yeah.
Slippery When Wet album. Like
Yeah.
Bon
And you
Jovi
were
was
just going into
awesome.
your teenage years. So I bet
Yeah.
you were like
Oh,
all
we were so
about it.
excited. We were in I remember specifically sixth grade. We
Okay.
thought we were so cool. So we all talked about it. We all made our own acid wash jeans. This is totally one of those things that our mom is good at a lot.
Yes.
She's not crafty.
She's not crafty, no, but she's
No,
done
she's
some
not.
crafty things before. I'll give her credit for that. But overall, she's not crafty.
She's not crafty. She would rather just go, like, honestly, like she would have probably rather just taken me to the store and bought a pair of jeans,
Oh, for
acid wash
sure. For
jeans.
sure.
And
Yes.
but we were all making them. Okay. So I'm like, great. So I'm making them. You do the bleach and all that. And mine turned out okay, whatever. Like we cut holes in them, all that. We were really trying to rock it up. This is what we were going to wear to the concert.
Rock it up.
And we thought we were so cool. We get to the concert. We're walking in our acid wash jeans that we made with our holes in them, freshly cut. And this group of like rocker boys, like older guys, were like, who brought the Girl Scouts?
No.
And we were
Wah,
devastated. We
wah.
were devastated.
Yeah, you were living on a prayer, like you were feeling high, and it like just brought you right down.
Yes, we were like so embarrassed, but we
You know
still had
what that
fun.
makes me think of when those jeans started coming out? Um, and I remember you may not have because you would have been a little younger. And by the time this time came for you, maybe mom wouldn't have said it to you, but you still probably heard it. Like, if I made you wear those jeans, you would be mortified, right? Like, in other words,
100%.
yes, like this is ridiculous. They look like they,
Or
came
junk. They
out
look
of,
junky.
yeah, like a
The
Goodwill
trash.
or something. And if I
Yeah,
got
yeah.
those and said, you have to wear these, you'd be
You
mortified.
would be so embarrassed.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, definitely heard that. Definitely heard that. Well, let's talk about snacks for a second.
Okay. I'm always up for talking about snacks.
So I love me some Doritos, and we didn't always have, like the original was just the cheese, and
Just to
that's
know,
all
the
we
original
had.
was just like a tortilla, like a nacho,
Oh,
like it was like in a
you're
gold
right.
bag, and it
I
didn't have
remember
cheese
that.
on it,
You're
but it
right.
wasn't like the like natural you think of now, like Tostitos. There was some type of flavor on
It
it,
was
but it was
nacho. It was like a
it was just
nacho.
a
You're
nacho,
right.
yeah, but it wasn't
You're
cheesy.
you're right. Well, then we had the cheesy. That's what
Yeah,
I
that was
really
the second
remember for a
one.
long
Yeah.
time. But then we got Cool Ranch Doritos, and they were the hottest
Um,
new flavor, and they are still the hottest new flavor in my
you still
opinion.
love you
I
some Cool Ranch, don't you?
I do. I rarely eat them. It's kind of like drinking a
Well,
Coke,
I
like
mean,
a
you
really special
eat
treat.
so clean. Yes.
But I,
Now, if I
love
had
a
the
Cool
choice
Ranch Dorito.
between Doritos cheesy one, not like the original one, but like a
Yeah.
cheesy one and a Cool Ranch, I would always choose the cheesy one, the kind that almost get your fingers reddish orange.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. That's how I feel about getting the Cool Ranch on
Well,
my
it's funny
fingers.
because those came out, but I can remember at that time in my life hearing the word sushi, right? Like in
Mhm.
college, in my early 20s, the word sushi and not knowing what it was at first. But these little fancy sushi places were becoming trendy. I remember we had one in Hattiesburg across from the college, but I wasn't about to taste it at that time. Now I love good sushi now, but it was trendy and
A little scary.
a little scary for me. So it was probably a whole nother decade before I would even taste sushi, but it was becoming a new thing in the world of food,
Well,
which is
that's funny because remember in Breakfast Club, Molly Ringwald Claire brings
yes,
sushi
that is
for
probably what
lunch.
triggered it becoming the thing.
Maybe so. Maybe so. But because I remember us talking about it in that it was such a kind of obscure thing. Well, in the fast food world, which we
Oh
know
Lord.
was rocking and rolling in the 80s,
Yeah.
Burger
We
King
talked about fast food
ruled.
a while back with which podcast was it? Oh, it was Overboard, I think. We talked about some of the fast food things that were coming out. So what came out this year?
Well, the Whopper. We also talked a little bit about fast food and I believe Red Dawn with Where's the Beef?
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
And so Burger King had the Whopper.
Right.
That was a
Because
big
it
deal.
hadn't just come out, it had been out for a while.
Mhm.
Right.
And you know what's funny? Like when I think about the 80s, we've talked about before the cola wars, like Coke or Pepsi.
Right.
That was kind of like the fast food wars too, like between some of these places.
Yeah, you're
So
exactly right.
they had the Whopper. McDonald's came out with the McDLT, and the trick about the McDLT was that they promised customers to keep the hot side hot and the cool side cool.
Which is just hysterical.
Like who
That would
cares?
be an advertising campaign. And
Yeah,
first of all,
well,
what does the D mean? Like McDLT. It sounds McD like
McDonald's
McDonald's. Yeah, I get it. I'm thinking of
lettuce
a
tomato.
BLT. Yes, because I guess
It's
they
the
hadn't. Yes.
McDLT.
Yeah,
So and
I
this is
get
what
it.
the slogan said on the commercial and on billboards. And I like also, by the way, when I read this, just think about this is not a catchy slogan.
Okay,
Okay.
let me hear it.
We found a way to keep the lettuce and tomato cool and the quarter pound of beef hot.
Yuck. That grosses me out. That grosses me out. But I do remember all of that. I do remember all of that.
So,
Well,
way to go, McDonald's.
yeah,
Way
I
to be
wonder who
innovative.
won that. I think my gut tells me Burger King won that battle because this Whopper is still around, and I don't think the McDLT is still around.
I don't know.
I
I
think
don't know.
they moved that into the quarter pounder
Maybe that makes
because it
sense.
says you said something about a quarter pound of beef. So
Oh,
now you have
quarter
the
pound of
Whopper
beef.
versus the quarter pounder rather than the McDLT.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
You're
when I
right. I think
first
that's
hear
right.
the McDLT, I'm thinking bacon, like a BLT.
Nope. No bacon.
Nope, no bacon. All right. Well, you know, we always like to have fun, but also talk about some things going on in the world. And there were some serious things happening in July of '88 as well. The South African government made headlines by banning the anti-apartheid film Cry Freedom, and things were really tense there internationally. Um, so, we
I
can, I
think
guess, throw that in there instead of Cold War stuff. But I remember, and I honestly, I still don't completely understand apartheid, but it was it was a big deal in South Africa. People were like
it was a
losing their
very big.
lives and stuff.
Oh, Oh yeah, it was a really big deal. And I feel like a lot of the 80s, there was a lot of global tension.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
there
there
was
was. Well,
a lot going on.
I think there was, and I just want to say to our real fans that I'm not great with history. If you haven't guessed
Uh-uh.
that now, I don't. Just it wasn't my favorite subject. I'm not great with history, but it's important enough, I think, to pause and talk about it. What do you have anything to say about the Cold War this week?
I actually do not today. I will just
Okay.
leave that alone.
Okay.
I actually am ready to dive into a little bit about Cocktail. So, who's behind the story of Cocktail? Interestingly enough, the screenplay was written by Haywood Gould and based loosely on his own experiences as a bartender in New York City.
Hmm. Well, Roger Donaldson directed the film. He was from Australia, and come to find out, he also had directed No Way Out with Kevin Costner, which is one of my favorites from the 80s, and we have to cover. Have you seen that one, sister?
I have not, and I do
Oh
want to.
my
Yeah,
gosh.
I want to watch it because I know it's a really good film, and we need to make sure it's on our list. So
Yeah.
let's do that.
Okay.
The cast was primarily comprised of Tom Cruise, who played Brian Flanagan. Um,
Robin Williams was actually considered for that role, as well as Jim Carrey and Charlie Sheen. And what's interesting as I was doing research, there were I kept going and it just kept saying more and more names of people who were considered. But can you imagine any of them playing
yeah,
Brian
it needs
Flanagan?
no. It
No.
really had to be somebody really charismatic because that's what kept the film going, in my opinion.
Yes.
I didn't even know Jim Carrey was like on the scene at that point. So that's
Maybe I got
interesting.
some bad research, but that's what I
No,
saw.
that's interesting. I could see Charlie Sheen a little bit with some
Yeah,
charisma
especially
at that
then.
time.
Yeah, at
At
that
that
time.
time, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But still, Tom was the choice. So anyway, he played Brian Flanagan, who was an ambitious bartender chasing big
Oh
dreams.
yeah.
And then Brian Brown played Doug Cough. I can't. Was it
Coglin.
Coughlin?
Coglin.
Coughlin.
Yeah.
Yes, Coughlin. Yes, that's right. 'Cause he's Coughlin's Law.
Yeah. And
Um,
he's actually married to the beautiful Rachel Ward from Against All Odds. Do you remember that?
oh, I do. I
Another
do.
one. Another great one.
Wow.
Yes. Yes. And
Well,
you know what? He's also from Australia, as was Roger Donaldson. So that may be tied
is a
somehow to him getting
connection.
that role. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, okay, so he is Australian. Well, he plays, like I said, Doug Coughlin. I'm sorry. Why can't I say
I don't
it?
know.
Coughlin. And he is Brian's mentor and partner in crime. This is a really interesting fact. They wanted Paul Newman for that role,
I
and
read
they
that
were going
too.
to as a way to reunite Newman and Cruz from The Color of Money in 1986, which was a great film, big hit, great work. Um, we
Cruz
should do
had a
that one
lot of movies come out in 86.
at this time. Yeah, he had a
Yeah,
lot going on.
86 was a big year for him, which is why I wanted to see this movie on opening night. I had fallen in love with him.
Yeah. Well, Elizabeth Shue Precious is Jordan Mooney and Brian's interest. The role was turned down by Molly Ringwald, which no,
No,
thank you.
no,
Mm-mm. And Heather Graham, who is also precious, and I think she could have done it.
no, she could not have. She doesn't, she
Oh, I
is
think
a
she's so
doll. She's a
cute.
doll, but she's a doll to me, like in a funny way. Elizabeth Shue
Yeah,
has that
girl next door,
innocent girl next door, charming. Like I don't think of
relatable.
Heather Graham as relatable or charming. She's beautiful and funny, but no, no, I don't think so.
Okay, okay, all right, I'll let you have it. Well, Elizabeth Shue, remember, was our girl in Adventures in Babysitting,
One of
which
my
is another
favorites.
one
One of my
on our
favorites from the
list.
80s. We've got to
Mhm.
get that one scheduled, sister.
Yep, definitely. It also had some other stars, Gina Gersh. How do you say her last name?
Gershon.
Gershon?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Gershon. Um, who, oh my gosh, I've always thought she was so beautiful, but she is most known for Showgirls actually in 95.
Yeah.
Um,
She actually, if you go back and look at her, like she doesn't have any roles really beyond Showgirls that she was the star, but she has so many supporting roles that you see her and you immediately recognize her. It was
she's
so
very recognizable and she's in
very
a
recognizable.
lot of
Yes,
TV shows
she
too.
is. But what is I heard that she said, because this was one of her first, roles, and she was like, what was it that she said? Something like, I found myself at 8 in the morning in bed, practically naked, having to make out with Tom Cruise. And I thought to myself, movie business? So far, so good.
Well, he would be lucky making out with her too, because she is stunning to
Yeah.
me. She
Yeah.
is just beautiful.
She's got that exotic look.
And then also we had Kelly Lynch, and she plays Patrick Swayze's girlfriend in Roadhouse.
Oh, yes.
Roadhouse 80s?
I think it is.
We'll
It's
see.
not,
We'll
it's,
see.
it's not one I'm
Making a
like,
note.
let's get it scheduled. Yeah.
Oh, no, 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 no. I'm just curious.
Well, as I mentioned, the movie is rated R and it's for language and some of that rolling in the bed type of content. And it ran
Yep.
for an hour and 44 minutes.
Sweet spot.
Yep.
Right.
Sweet spot.
Right in our sweet spot. Well, at the box office, it was a huge success. Probably, like you said, because we had all fallen in love with Tom Cruise. The movie grossed 171 million worldwide and a 20 million on a 20 million budget.
Yeah.
And that's pretty impressive. So, and it got mixed reviews from critics. So
It
it's
did.
not like it was this like highly acclaimed film.
No, but who was not going to go see Tom Cruise as a lead in something called Cocktail with his cute picture on it after
Yeah.
what he had been putting out? But this
Yeah.
movie, you were talking about the critical acclaim, it's actually listed among the 100 most enjoyable bad movies ever made.
That is a great
I
description.
know. I thought
It
so
is an
too.
enjoyable bad movie. That is a great description.
Yes,
We got to
yes.
remember that. It was actually the worst reviewed movie of his career.
Yeah.
9% Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, that actually was in a study or statistic that came out like recently in the last year or so that it was. So it's not
Oh,
just
boy.
of the 80s his worst reviewed
Flop.
movie, it was of his career. So
Yeah, but I think it's funny because I don't think you could like it. This is description. You can't consider it a flop because
no,
it
you
made a
can't.
ton of money.
Yeah, it did.
It just is not well reviewed. By the
Well,
way, sister, just want you to know Roadhouse was 89, so we can just slip that right in.
no, that's okay. There's going to be some other ones that we want to replace that with. But I will say that Cocktail did get some award buzz, although not all of it was positive. It won the Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Picture and Worst Screenplay, but it was nominated for a Golden Globe for the Best Original Song, Kokomo by the Beach Boys. And as I was watching it and I was listening to, and that, song came on, I was like, oh, they used a Beach Boys song. I didn't realize until doing the research that it was written for the movie. It's original song.
Down in Kokomo.
Ruba,
That song
Jamaica.
was
Ooh, I wanna take you to Key Largo,
Bermuda.
Montego.
That song was so popular. Well, Tom Cruise, we know he really gets into his character.
He's
Like,
definitely a method actor.
He is dedicated. And he trained with real bartenders to perfect his mixology skills, which I kind of think you would have to do for this film. And he did most of the stunts himself. I guess the stunts being the throwing bottles around.
Yeah. Well, Elizabeth Shue was actually a late addition to the cast. So I guess they had offered it to the ladies that you said earlier. But they must have really been digging to find somebody that would be perfect for this part. I actually read that once they saw her, they knew immediately she was the right fit, which makes sense because to me, I can't imagine anyone else.
Yeah.
But listen to some of the people. They they auditioned Jennifer Grey, Demi Moore, Ali Sheedy, Jodie Foster, Daryl Hannah, Sarah Jessica Parker, and Jennifer Jason Leigh. All of them. And again, I can't see any of them. They all have great acting chops, but I just don't think anyone else could have pulled off Jordan like Elizabeth Shue
Um,
did.
maybe Jennifer Grey.
Maybe, but by that time, I
But
think
you
she
know who
was just in
definitely
our
not?
hearts of as baby. Who?
Jodie Foster.
Yeah, I know.
Can you imagine her like chilling on the beach?
No,
What?
I cannot. I cannot.
Well, like you were talking, we were actually talking about Kokomo being specifically written for the movie. And the band was initially skeptical, but like I said, it was popular and it became a number one hit. And one of their most iconic songs, I mean, when I think of Beach Boys, I think of Kokomo.
I do too. I do too. Well, the Jamaican beach scenes were filmed in Port Antonio, which not only looked stunning, but also it became you can imagine, a huge tourist spot because of the movie.
So that's interesting because I actually in a couple of the scenes when we saw the beach, I was like, "Ooh, that doesn't look like Jamaica." Like it didn't. I don't know. There were just a couple of times that I was kind of thrown off. So I wondered. I didn't look, and I didn't know that, but that so it was actually filmed some parts in Jamaica.
Yeah.
Interesting. Um, on the Gold Coast, aka Surfers Paradise in Queensland, Australia, there is a real life multi-level nightclub called Cocktails and Dreams, which is part of the movie and named after the one in the movie, which goes back to this connection you were talking about with the Australians.
Yeah.
So there must be like some deep Australian ties here or something.
Yeah, maybe so. It's so interesting that now there is this shift toward like nightclubs being multi-level. I mean, like I know in Nashville, like they will have, a juke joint, a bar that has, five or six stories. And on each of the stories, they might have a different band playing or something like that. That is not something you saw in the 80s. I mean, it was
Interesting.
huge buildings that were big and flat.
Like big, huge warehouses or something.
Yes,
Like
like
it
a big,
might,
huge
there might be
warehouse.
like a
There'd be
balcony around the
sections.
top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't
Interesting.
even remember any places really with balconies at the top
Because
behind.
you did a lot of night clubbing. You did a lot
Oh,
of
I was
clubbing.
such the nightclubber for sure. Um, well, kind of talking about the nightclubs and the, cocktails and all of that, you told us that Tom Cruise had trained with real bartenders, but the bottle tossing that was done in the film, that was
Hmm.
actually not scripted. It was like a last minute throw in there. The actors were having fun, wanting to feel like real bartenders. So they started it, which when I think of cocktail, the movie,
That's what you
that's what
think
I
of.
think of, are the shows that they would do with the throwing of the liquor bottles and like the
Yeah,
his,
that's what made them
yeah,
unique.
yeah. And Coughlin like behind him and he would like
Uh-huh.
throw a glass and he'd catch it and they would work together
That's
to it.
that's the coolest part of the movie,
Yeah.
for sure. Well, one more thing. This is really interesting. So, do you, I don't know. I think it's interesting because I feel like Tom Cruise is such like a stunter. And so like we've heard stories about him today, in nowadays time of like saving people from, I don't know,
Yeah. I mean, he's
things happening.
saved people in traffic and stuff.
Yeah, like
He's
those kind
like
of
a hero.
stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But during filming, he saved Elizabeth Shue's life. Maybe I'm being dramatic, but that's, what I researched. When they were reviewing a shot on a helicopter camera, she started to run back to filming from the helicopter and she was running into the tail rotor and he like tackled her at the last second.
Oh, well, thank you, Tom Cruise, because I
That would have been
love
awful.
Elizabeth Shue. It would have been horrible. Well, sister, I say let's go Everyone, grab your shaker. Let's shake things up. It's time to pour out the story of Cocktail. Well, real fans, the movie kicks off with Brian Flanagan fresh out of the army and strutting into New York City like he's ready to conquer the world. He goes to his Uncle Pat's bar and he's sharing all of his dreams with him, right? Amanda, when he's at the bar, LSU is playing on the TV behind him.
I know, I noticed that.
Yeah, Chris Washam pointed it out. I would not have noticed it.
Another thing I noticed that I will tell you, I noticed a few times throughout this film, and for various reasons, Tom Cruise, as you said, fresh out of the army. Tom Cruise's hair is not hair that is fresh out of the army, because if he was fresh out of the army, he would not have those luscious locks. So
his luscious locks are gorgeous.
Throwing that out there. Yep. That was that was our
Suspending
first
belief.
Clue. Our first clue that this movie was not dedicated to reality. But yes, as he's leaving the army, he's got this overconfident swagger, really, which is perfect for Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
He's thinking he's going to land a corner office in no time.
It's so funny. He goes to all those interviews.
It's interviews, yeah. But reality hits hard when he realizes that without a degree or any connections, no one is giving him the time of day.
Yeah. He was a big wig in the army, but he keeps hearing no, no, no. And you can really see like his frustration growing as the rejection hits. And eventually he decides that he's got to make some money while he's figuring this out. You know, he is a dreamer in this movie. Like, he's got big dreams. So what does he do? I guess it goes back to his family roots. He goes to get a bartending job at a local bar. And that is when we see Doug Coughlin with all of his Coughlin laws that he shares throughout the movie.
And I do believe this first bar is basically a TGI Fridays. I don't know if you caught that, but it's a TGI Fridays.
Now that you say it, yeah.
It is. Doug is this older, seasoned bartender with this Australian accent because he's Australian. And he's seen it all. He's sharp, charismatic. I thought he was annoying.
I did too.
And I was like, who are you? And immediately takes Brian under his wing. Doug's not just pouring drinks. He's performing. And he teaches Brian the art of flair bartending, flipping bottles, spinning shakers, and making it all look effortless.
You know, I was thinking it would have been a funny clip, and maybe they did it and cut it, but for him learning it, because you know that's not easy. I mean,
right.
It would have been so funny to have a piece almost like from Footloose where the guy's learning to dance, you know, and they like of him trying to catch the bottles and them trying to put their show together, but they didn't, did they? They just quickly become a team, and man, they are bringing in massive crowds with their tricks and their showmanship, which isn't realistic. They had to get there. And then, of course,
you're right.
Go ahead.
That would have also, I think, like moved along their character development, like their friendship. It would have shown the development of their friendship.
Yeah, you're right. But you know, it's not. They want to make it this mentorship. You mentioned that earlier. Like Doug was his mentor, but he's his mentor to me in a weasel way, like with his Coughlin's laws. And he's just such a know-it-all, to me at least. That's what he calls his advice. And as he's doing that, he is encouraging Brian to dream. And that's how Brian's dream kind of comes out, that he's got a dream of a nationwide chain of bars called Cocktails and Dreams.
Yeah, but you're right. Like I don't feel like he's this great guy.
Yeah.
And
No.
we can talk about that throughout.
Yeah.
One more thing I've got to share here because we're going to see it throughout as well. So I'm watching, remember the very first night at TGI Fridays when Tom
TGI
is
Fridays.
trying to be a bartender, just a regular bartender,
Right.
and he
Oh,
cannot keep
yes.
up.
So,
He
yeah,
can't
there
keep
is
up.
that. Yeah.
Well, but I mean, there's no teacher, right? He can't keep up. So many people are there, right? They're demanding drinks. They want their drinks. They want their drinks. Suddenly, when they become these like mixologists and they're tossing bottles and doing this show, there's still people wanting drinks. So I'm like, this guy over here who just wants a beer, he doesn't want to wait for your 10-minute like bottle throwing show. Like
Yeah.
I just felt like they weren't able to get, in reality, wouldn't have been able to get drinks out fast enough. And so they should have had like other people back there serving because it's just not.
There was a lot of having to
people would have been like
suspend reality. Yeah.
Yeah. People would be like, no, I'm not waiting for these two bartenders to mix my martini that's going to take 5 minutes.
And I go back to wondering probably why didn't he just get a job at Uncle Pat's bar?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
TGI Fridays, I guess, was calling for him. But it is clear they've got chemistry behind the bar. It is fun to watch. But Brian's ambition's growing, and he's going to business school while working at the bar.
He's struggling.
But he's struggling because he's up late and all night at the bar and then going to school and like falling asleep in class. So he drops out of business school to focus on bartending. And the two
I mean,
of
that's a
them
parent's worst nightmare.
Right.
Yeah.
And then he lands, or they together with their little show, land a gig at this big trendy nightclub where their act becomes the main attraction. And this is where I really was like, oh, there are way too many people there to wait on this little show.
But there I did feel like it was a show.
There were other.
But what had happened, they got in a fight, didn't they? At that bar? Was that the bar they got in a fight with?
Yes.
Okay. Well, at that new bar, their popularity doesn't just bring in crowds, which it does, but they also catch the eye of women, you can tell. And there's this one girl, Coral, a wealthy photographer, and she and Brian start dating. Now, this is the Gina Gershon character, and things are going well, very well, until Doug gets involved. So, see, I was thinking the fight was at this bar rather than the other bar, but they got fired from the other bar. So,
the TGI Fridays?
Yeah.
No. Just wait. Let me tell you what happens here.
Okay.
So, this is where
get me right together.
Let me get you right together. So, no, at the TGI Friday bar, they meet a guy who like offers them this gig at this
that's
fancy
right.
club.
That's right. Well, I just had asked you if this is where they fought, and you said yeah, but
they do.
They fight at the
here.
New bar. Okay, sorry, real fans. A little sisterly quarrel there.
Yeah, they fight at the new trendy bar. It's called like the Ice Block or something. I don't know. Anyway, this is where, like you said, they meet the Coral chick, and I like Brian. They're hitting it off. They really like her. And I already saw some like shady stuff with Doug, like giving her the looks because when they're at the apartment and they're like watching the football game or whatever. And Tom Cruise even says, let's go to Jamaica or whatever. Anyway, in that scene,
that Jamaica's the place to go for the bar.
Yes. And she's agreeing with them. And I don't know, Doug's giving her some like eyes and she's giving him some eyes and it's ooky. Well,
and let me just say, I had really thought they were going to be a one night stand. So when it cuts to the three of them in his apartment
hanging out,
I was like, okay.
You're like, okay. Well, Doug bets Brian that this relationship won't last. I just feel like he's always trying to ruin stuff for him. So he bets this relationship won't last. They're like out playing basketball. And Brian is really thinking this is something. And so Doug won't leave well enough alone. And he, like I said, bets him. So he takes him a step further. He's going to win that bet. So unbeknownst to Brian, Doug convinces Coral to sleep with him, completely sabotaging the relationship. And I'm pretty sure he convinces her by telling her that Brian made a bet about her.
Mm.
And yeah, he's sleazy.
Yeah, he really is. But when Brian finds out, I mean, that's when hell breaks loose,
That's the
right?
bar fight.
That's the
Yes.
big fight. And everybody's watching, the customers are watching, and everything falls apart. Their, performing partnership with the bottles, their friendship is over. Brian storms out, and just like that, their friendship is no longer.
Yep, yep. And it is a chaotic, dramatic scene that really sets the stage for what's to come. Brian's world, he's just kind of lost everything. And you can tell he's about to hit rock bottom.
Yeah, but fast forward 2 years, and we find that cute Tom Cruise as Brian Flanagan working at a beachside bar in Jamaica. He's moving toward his dreams. He traded the chaos of New York City for the tropical sunsets and the frozen cocktails of Jamaica.
Yeah, he's clearly hoping to start fresh and save up enough money to finally open his own bar, Cocktails and Dreams, which is actually, he got that idea from Brian. That was Brian's dream. That's what he wanted. He saw him sketch that out, and that's what he wanted to name it. So this is where Jordan Mooney enters, the artist who immediately catches his eye.
And I had not watched this movie in probably over a decade. And I kept thinking, when is Jordan coming in? When is Jordan coming in? Like, you're, a third of the way through the movie before we ever get to meet her.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
But Brian and Jordan, once they do meet, they hit it off quickly, and their relationship is loving and carefree, and it's romantic walks on the beach and dancing under the stars. And you get the idea this could possibly be something special, one of those resort romances.
Yeah, but you know what? I was going to
What?
say when he met her, because we were talking about Tom Cruise saving people, he came to her girlfriend's rescue because she had like passed out on the beach. That's how they met.
Right. That's right. He's such a
So,
good guy. There he was being a hero again. And so here's just kind of another fascinating fact. The waterfall where they really like took it to the next
fell in
level and
love when
fell
she
in
took her
love.
bathing
The
suit
scene,
off.
yes,
Oh
that
my
was
gosh.
hysterical. That is a famous waterfall because it was used in a scene from the first James Bond movie, Dr. No. And so I thought that can you guess who gave me that as we were
Your
watching it?
husband.
Oh, my husband, absolutely. Absolutely. He gave me that quote or that little bit of information. But okay, so I have a story here, and I actually did not plan on sharing it, but I just thought about it.
What?
Mom took you and me, and you may have had a friend. I had a friend. Stephanie Pickering was the friend. And we were at Fort Walton Beach. We stayed at was it the Ramada Inn at the time? The Ramada Inn. It had the big rock in the swim up bar at the
Hmm.
resort. I think it was the Ramada Inn at the time. And speaking of resort romances, I met a guy who was a bartender. I cannot believe that I did not remember this story until right now. And his name was Steve. I could say his last name because I do still remember it. I met him there, and we like talked. I definitely was like 18. I was very young. He was obviously older. We talked. I thought he was cute. I don't remember if we like walked on the beach or anything. I, I can't remember, but I do remember I gave him my number. And I do remember that he drove to see me a couple of weeks after that. And we actually
No.
went to a movie at Cloverleaf Mall. I had told my other friends about him, and they went to the mall to kind of see him because we ate at Orange Julius just down from the theater in
He
Cloverleaf Mall.
drove
He
from
did.
Florida.
But let me
And
just,
wait.
okay.
And you took that poor boy to eat at Orange Julius.
Well, he took me because it was a date. Yes.
Not even Chesterfield's.
No, no. We definitely went to the mall at Orange Julius. And maybe it's because he got there kind of late because he had a 5-hour drive to get there from Fort Walton.
This is awful.
It is really bad. And this is really bad. And I will just say, outside of the resort and the lure of the wind,
the
and
beach
sun,
romance.
Yeah, the beach romance. I didn't think he was so cute anymore. And this was not very nice of me. And we went to the movie and we were coming back home, and he was actually going to stay at our house in our guest room. And on the way home, we were driving home, and he was talking about how much he loved to drive at night. And I said, well, if you want to.
Wait, stop it. This is awful.
It's horrible. It's horrible. I'm so sorry, Steve, wherever you are. I wasn't saying it ugly, but I said, if you want to drive on home tonight, I understand. And he probably didn't think I was as cute as I seemed maybe on the beach, because he did drive home that night. And all of that saying, it's a miracle that Brian and Jordan made it, because sometimes resort romances do not continue and they come to a dead stop. I cannot believe I just shared that. And I can't believe I didn't think about it before and had the sense to say, don't share that. But I just did.
Did he at least call you and say, I made it home safely?
I honestly don't know if I ever talked to him again.
That is awful.
Yeah, it's awful.
I have some really crazy high school stories of craziness, but meeting the out of town boys and doing some of the most unsafe, crazy shenanigans.
It was a different time, sister. It really was a different time.
Awful.
I'm sorry, Steve. But obviously he didn't like me either. We didn't hit it off away from the resort. All right, let's get back to the movie.
But of course, Missy, we know things can't stay perfect for long. Doug shows up in Jamaica, and he's now married to this girl named Carrie.
Who's the one who was, she was the girlfriend in Roadhouse.
Yes. And a much younger and flirtatious woman. And you know who she reminds me of when we see her for the first time on the beach and she's wearing that really like 80s bikini? She reminds me of that girl from the 80s. Like, is it Bo Jackson or something? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Bo Jackson. Bo Derek. Bo Jackson was I know that's a name in sports, like a football player or something.
She reminds me of Bo Derek with that like blonde straight hair and really tan skin. Right?
Yeah. No, that is who. I mean, she didn't remind me of Bo Derek, but that is the name you were looking for.
But Bo Jackson for sure.
Oh my goodness, so funny.
But anyway, he's married to this girl named Carrie, and in true form, Doug starts stirring up trouble.
Yeah, because Brian is all in to cute Elizabeth Shue, Jordan. But Doug, as you said, stirring up trouble, and he bets Brian that he can't attract this wealthy woman from across the bar, who later we learn is Bonnie. What?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I have to stop you here because we haven't, I don't think, mentioned yet, and I think this is important. Or I shouldn't say they. Doug is all about getting a rich woman.
Oh, yeah.
Like the money. They want money so they can open this dream bar. And he's all about landing a rich lady.
But so definitely, I don't think that's Brian's idea in the beginning of what he wants to do. He's a go-getter. He's an entrepreneur. Yeah. He's a dreamer. And But you're
Yeah,
right.
but
That Doug is wants women who are wealthy, which just grosses me out too. That's just so slimy and gross. But anyway, he makes him this bet that he can't get this woman across the bar named Bonnie, and she's an older woman, and she is a. I think I said she's a guest at the resort. And she's played by Lisa Baines, and she has a huge resume, but do you know who she is, Amanda? I knew she looked familiar. So, I always have my IMDb app. So while I was watching this, I was like, who is she? Who is she? Now she is definitely an older woman. She played in Gone Girl. She was Amy's mother, the author who wrote
oh,
the
yep,
Amy books. So that is
yep.
who she was. And she was, I mean,
She's
beautiful
very,
older
yeah,
woman at the bar. Yeah.
she's very recognizable.
Yeah.
But I have to say, her in this movie, you know who she reminds me of? Like character wise, not as a like not the way
Okay,
she
I'm
looks.
thinking of someone. I'm wondering if it's going to be who you say.
Okay, I don't
You say
well,
it.
let's say what movie.
Okay, no, go ahead.
She reminds me from somebody in a movie. She reminds me of Vivian from Dirty Dancing. The
Oh,
old rich
yes.
lady. Oh, I shouldn't say old.
Yes.
The older rich lady that's like,
Yes,
trying to.
totally.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Who were
no.
you thinking of?
I don't know. She kind of has a Meryl Streep look in this movie to me, somewhat. So I thought
Oh
it was going
yeah.
to be strange if you said that.
Uh-uh, uh-uh.
But anyway, so Brian, who's not, he does have that competitive spirit. He takes the bet. He says he's up for the challenge.
This really pisses me off. I'm sorry because he's doing good at his bar,
Yep.
making money. He's got this cute girlfriend that he really likes that he's, having a good time with. And it's so stupid
Yeah, and
he
he's not
takes
acting
this
like a
dumb bet.
yeah, and he's not acting like a player when he's with Jordan. He's sweet and
No.
kind and into her. And so this just goes back to what all of our mothers told us, real fans. Birds, be careful who you hang around. Birds of a
Yep.
feather, right? He shouldn't be hanging around with Doug. Doug is trouble.
Doug is trouble. Well, I mean, of course, he wins Bonnie over. But when Jordan sees Brian and Bonnie drunkenly walking back to her hotel little bungalow, she's devastated, of
Yes,
course.
she is. Ah,
You can just feel her little heartbreak because you can just see it on her face. She realizes that Brian isn't the man that she thought he was.
yeah. And of course, the next morning, Brian wakes up and he's full of regret. Don't you know? He's just like, oh my gosh, what did I do?
So
And so
stupid.
it is so stupid. He goes and tries to find Jordan to make things right, but this girl doesn't play. She has already left Jamaica. She is returned to the United States and she's out of there. She is like, I am not playing this game. And I think, Amanda, and you can say what you think, but I think this is a turning point for him when he went to find her and she's gone.
Well, yeah, for sure. But this is just a sidebar. I also wondered at this point, I was like, wait a minute, kind of hit me that she had been there for a lot, like she'd been on this vacation a long time and she had this little bungalow. I was like, wait, she's like there for the summer or something. She's
Yeah.
there
And
for a
I
long
mean, we
time.
do find out later that she's
Yes,
wealthy. So
has
she
money,
could have
right?
stayed there for the summer.
That like had been there for the summer. But
Yeah,
anyway,
and
it was
I
just
think
like
also
at that
it's
moment
interesting a plot where they missed something on the plot is building up to why was she there for so long? Like they
for
kind
so
of that was
long.
a plot skip to me. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, good point. Well, of course, Brian, he's lost Jordan. But now he's got as they say in the movie, Doug calls it a rich chick. He's landed a rich chick.
Sugar
So
mama.
he heads back to New York with Bonnie.
Okay, I have to say
Uh,
something right here.
Okay.
I mean, he's going to give up that easily on Jordan. Like to me again,
Yes. And
like
the whole it's just so gross.
yeah, it is. And when I said it was a turning point for him, I didn't necessarily mean in a great way, right? Like, I think it's a shock,
Oh,
like somebody has left me, but he's just going to settle
oh.
right in with her, just like you said.
You mean a turning point maybe for the worse. Like
Yeah, I don't, yeah, a turning
he's kind
point, a
of
realization. Yes,
given
yes.
up on his dreams.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Well, like I said, he goes back with Bonnie and hoping her wealth and connections are going to help him land this big corporate job like he was looking for in the beginning.
right. Like, this is my ticket.
But instead of feeling fulfilled, he really starts to resent her lifestyle and what she represents and like he like goes out to this, I don't know, museum opening or like art opening or something, and everyone's just really dismissive of him, and she treats him lowly, very, like,
Yeah.
could you get my coat, darling? And
Yeah, he's definitely arm candy. And it's actually at that art exhibit where there's an altercation and another fight, breaks out and things are boiling over and they break up. She's done with him.
she's done with him, but he's no. But wait, remember? Because it kind of does play out that way. But at the same time, remember, she's like, oh, darling, we can work this out. And he says that he had that afternoon already moved his stuff out.
Oh, I
So
missed
he's
that.
art.
I
Yeah.
missed that.
So he had already planned on, like, this was his last shindig with her.
Yeah, he was done.
Um,
She was
but
done. He was done. They were
it
mutually
was
done,
over
but it
as
didn't
they
end
needed.
pretty. Yes, it was gross.
No. But he, at this point, decides he's going to go try to reconcile with Jordan, and he tracks her down. He actually remembers the diner that she said she worked at.
Oh,
This was sweet. And he shows up at a booth and wants to win her back. And she's having none of it and dumps a plate of food on his head.
I loved that. He deserved it. I mean, she's hurt, and you can tell like she doesn't want to be hurt again. But later, when she's calmer, she reveals to him, and this is when something's coming up about he was spooked. And he's
Yeah,
like, no, I'm
he's
not going to get
ready.
spooked again. I'm ready. And she said, I bet I can spook you. And that's where she reveals to him she's pregnant. But she's still hesitant to let him back into her life. And
Oh,
she's
yeah.
conflicted and she wants to protect herself. And I mean, let's face it, I shared a story earlier about resort romances not working. And she wants to protect both herself, but now it's even more than that. She wants to protect her child from any pain or being left.
Yes. And
Yeah.
she actually kicks him out at that point. It's
Yeah.
like, get out, get out. It's very dramatic.
Yes, it is.
But Brian doesn't give up. He
Mm-mm.
tries to find her only to learn from a neighbor when he goes back to the apartment to find her. And then the neighbor's like, oh, she's staying with her parents, on Park Avenue. And he realizes, she's rich.
Yes.
And he gets there and meets Jordan's father, Richard.
Yes, Richard was not a nice guy. He didn't want his daughter hanging around with this guy. Who is this guy? And he actually tries to pay Brian off. He's
Yeah, that
like,
was
and
gross too.
it wasn't, what did he offer? Like 10,000, like 10 or 20,000. Like it wasn't,
It was like 10. It was not
yeah, I was
20.
like, here's $10,000. Stay away from my daughter. And of course, Brian refuses. But as he is refusing, and he's trying to prove that he's not after the money and all that, Jordan comes in, and it's a hot mess.
Yeah, isn't that where he tears the check up? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, he
yes.
does.
He's like,
Because
I don't
in
want
that,
this
yeah,
money.
Yep. And Jordan explains, because he's like, well, you weren't so honest either. And she's like, well, I hid my wealth because I wanted you to love me for who I was, not because I had money. You and Doug are also always so caught up about money. And that's it. That's
Yeah,
when he tears
that's
up the
when he
check.
does it.
And he's like, you want to know how much I care about the money? He tried to buy me off and he tears it up. And it is a pretty bold move. Now, this is a very endearing moment. I have to say something here. This is one of those moments. Remember, we talked about this a lot during Breakfast Club, where there is the bad guy, and not the bad guy, but like
The bad
I don't
boy.
know,
Bad
the
boy.
bad boy.
Yeah, yeah.
And you have those moments in the movie where you always fall for them. They are endearing. And that I feel like this is he's
His
not a
redeeming
bad
time.
boy.
Yeah.
I know he's not a bad boy, but this is one of those moments I feel like in a movie as a young girl, you're like, oh, this is wonderful. I
That's
want
the
this guy to,
payout. That's the payout for dating the bad boy, is that you feel like that's
they're
when
going
he,
to
yeah,
change
this
and swoop
redemption moment.
in.
Yes.
Yeah, they're going to swoop in and show you their true love. And yes, but don't be fooled, ladies.
No, I mean, PSA, 9 times out of 10, if they're a bad boy and they're giving hints to that throughout the relationship, it's not like they have this miraculous moment
Transformation.
where they change and transform and become your Prince Charming.
Brian
It just
Flanagan. They
doesn't
don't,
happen that way.
yeah, the Brian Flanagan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so, he has torn up the check, he leaves. And so Brian decides, Amanda, that he's going to go track Doug down and find out where he is, because he and his wife were going to be opening some big fancy bar. And he had even told him that when it didn't work out, to come find him. They had some bet about it not working out, to come find him, and he'd give him a job at his new big Manhattan club they were opening. And so Brian swallows his pride. He grabs, they had bet some fancy scotch or some kind of fancy liquor, and he has it in hand when he goes to the fancy club. And he indeed finds Doug. And it's such a slimy moment, because like Doug is sitting over with like a group of women and high rollers, but yet his wife is over like flirting it up with other men. And
Even
anyway,
like kissing him on the lips.
yes,
It
it
was
was just
ooky.
it was creepy. But Doug and Brian leave to go down to Doug's yacht where he's living. And even though Brian originally had thought when he went into the club, man, like Doug has hit the jackpot, he's achieved all this financial success, everything they had talked about and dreamed of, he quickly realizes that that's not so.
Yeah, it's not what they seem. So Doug admits that his business has collapsed. His wife doesn't know about it. And in a desperate attempt to recover, he's invested all of Carrie's money in
Because she's the one with the
commodities.
money, right?
Right, right, yeah. And she doesn't know about any of this.
Right.
And surprise, he's lost it all. They've hit rock bottom.
Ugh. And I never felt sorry for Doug in this, but in this moment, you can feel he's hit rock bottom. He's broken. He's been this like larger than life bartender and kind of this creepy mentor, or creepy to me, but he's broken. He's broken
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Um, so later, so Carrie comes in
to the yacht.
to the yacht
Yeah.
after Brian's like passed out and she's ready to go home, but not Brian. Yeah, Brian's passed out.
No, Doug's passed
No,
out.
Doug. Sorry. Doug is passed out. So Brian is like, okay, I'll take you home. So he takes her back to her apartment. Things take a weird turn,
Yeah.
and she's bored with her marriage and tries to seduce Brian. But it made me think back to the scene when he went to the fancy bar. She kissed him on the lips then.
I know. It was gross.
So for once, finally, Brian does the right thing and rebuffs her advances and leaves. Thank goodness. It is a small moment, but it does show a little bit of growth in his
Yeah.
character.
Yeah, finally. And I think we're seeing breadcrumbs to that, right? Like the way he reacted to Jordan's dad. And
Yeah.
now he's like, I don't want any of this from you, girl. But so he leaves and he's headed back to Doug's boat. But when he gets there, it is a rough scene to watch because Doug has taken his own life. He's actually used pieces of glass from the broken bottle to cut his own throat. He's laying there in his own blood. And, you know, the man who had his Coughlin's Law, who seemed to have all the answers, had none of the answers. And Brian finds him and is freaks out and is now left to, I think, really think about this loss, this man he looked up to, and what all that means.
I feel like so goes it sometimes with people like that. They're like, I don't know, think that they've got it all figured out. And find out later that those are really the people that
Are struggling.
Don't have it figured out at all.
Especially
A
when
good,
you're that overt about it.
mhm.
Generally, when you are hot shotting about something, you're overcompensating, and it is to hide something else.
I'm glad you told me about the cutting his throat because I didn't know. I thought he shot himself. I don't know. But that makes sense from the bottle. I get it now.
I mean, that's what
Um,
I assumed, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Maybe we need to
no, I
research
think it
that.
was that.
Okay.
I think it was
But
that
can
now
you
that you say it.
imagine cutting yourself? I
I
can't.
don't know.
All right, let's just
Well,
research it to be sure. We may have to come back and put something on social and let the
okay.
real fans know.
Verify. Okay. Well, Carrie, after we know at this point, like you see the police come and everything,
Yeah.
and so we know he's dead of suicide. So then we see Brian in his old apartment, and he opens a letter that Carrie has mailed him that Doug had left for him. It was like a suicide note. I guess, sort of. And in it, Doug reveals that his life was a fraud. He was never the success he pretended to be, and his insecurities and failures finally caught up with him. And I have to tell you, this part I
Oh my
thought was
gosh.
so
You're giggling about
ridiculous
a end of life letter. Okay,
because
go ahead.
I thought he was gonna open it and it was gonna be like a check, like
Oh
go open
yeah.
your cocktails and dreams or something. But it was really like, I don't know, it was just like sort of insignificant. And I just thought he was such a bad influence on him. And I was just like, whatever. I don't know.
Well, what I thought is that it was poor writing because there was nothing, as you said, it was insignificant. There was nothing really significant in the letter that he wrote. And I don't think he would have been in the mindset to have left Brian a letter. So I
Yeah.
don't know. It was definitely strange. And this actually becomes another turning point for Brian. Um, Doug's death, it wasn't just the loss of a friend. I don't even know. To me, they weren't even friends. It was like they were
Right.
frenemies. It's like they were
Yeah.
frenemies. But
Yeah. It
it
was like
is
it was
yes,
toxic.
it was toxic. But it is a wake up call. Um, I think Brian in that moment is deciding like what kind of man do I want to be? What do I want my life to be like moving forward? And so he's pondering that. And
Yeah. Cause that's a good point because he's realized like this isn't it.
yeah. And so in that moment, he becomes more determined than ever to win Jordan back. And he goes back to the parents' Park Avenue apartment. It's so funny because the doorman's like, I can't let you up. And he, does that, the famous scene we often see where people run to the elevator and get in right as the door closes. And it turns out when he gets up there that nobody is wanting him there. Um, But it doesn't stop
Yeah.
him, does it?
No, it does not. Of course not. He's going to rescue his lady. He fights his way up, determined to talk to Jordan. And when he finally sees her, she's all like, "What's going on?" And he tells her about Doug's death. And she's like, "What?" She's devastated. Um, it admits that he doesn't want to make the same mistake by being too proud to ask for help.
Mm. Well, he also explains that his Uncle Pat has given him a loan to start his own bar and that he's confident it's going to be a success. And what he's trying to do is he's trying to tell her, like, I'm making it on my own. I'm ready to be responsible. Like he's trying to make her understand that he's changed.
Yes. And sidebar, I'm going to bring up his hair one more time. Remember in the beginning when I said, "Oh, it was so long. That's not what would be like in the army." We have seen up to this point, especially in this scene, a lot of inconsistencies with his hair as far as
Yes.
how long, how short, wavy, straight.
Yes.
Some real editing issues here with his hair. It
Yes.
is a mess. Like from one room to the other in the apartment, his hair
Yes.
can do a full makeover. It is so interesting.
It is
So,
terrible editing, but I heard that the reason why his hair is so different is he was also filming, was it Rain Man? He was filming at the same time as this. And so he was
maybe,
going back and forth from the sets and
yeah,
it caused some
maybe
issues.
so.
Yeah.
Maybe that was it, but it definitely has that Rain Man look for
Yeah.
sure. But anyway, regardless of those hair editing mistakes, Jordan can't resist. No, I'm kidding. She actually does hesitate. She's really unsure if she can trust him after everything that's happened. And that's when Brian makes his big declaration. He tells her,
Mm.
"This is, ladies, this is what we love. This is what we wait for." He loves her. He wants to marry her and take care of their child.
And of course, who can resist him? She agrees, but the daddy, Richard, he is not having it. He tries to interfere. It leads to a fight. And in the scuffle, the security guard, I mean, it's just
AKA
a mess.
the doorman, I think,
Yeah.
like the butler is
Yeah.
what he is.
And in the whole like rambunctious thing, I think Jordan even gets into the shuffle and the mix, and it is the last straw for the conflict with the family.
And I might be making this up in my mind, but I think when that happens with Jordan, that we hear Brian say something like, "She's pregnant. Get your hands off of her."
Yeah,
Well, as they leave,
because they're
because she
done. They're
does,
done.
they're
Yeah.
done. They're done. They're leaving. And the dad's like, "You're out of our will. You're dead to me." Richard tells them, like I said, they're on their own. And Brian's response is classic. "I prefer it that way." And you can tell he is ready to build his life with Jordan on his own terms.
Oh my gosh. Well, finally, our couple's together, and the movie wraps up with Brian and Jordan getting married and Brian opening his dream bar, Flanagan's Cocktails and Dreams. It's everything he's worked toward. And of course, he's doing his fancy stuff behind the bar. Jordan's sitting over on top of a looks like a table, and the family's around and their celebration, and the crowd asks for a poem, which we actually didn't talk about as we talked about in the movie, that they were working at this bar at one point where people would do these like off the cuff poems, and he was
Yeah.
good at it, so he would jump up on the bar and do a poem. So when the crowd asks for a poem, he delivers. He hops up on the bar and shares the name of the poem. He says is Flanagan's advice to his unborn child. Um, and it's Amanda. Let's see if let's recite it. Are you ready? So I'll start. He says,
Okay.
if Jordan gives birth to a fine Irish son, there'll be cocktails and dreams for him one day to run. A business that shall yield a financial windfall to be franchised in every suburban shopping mall.
And by the way, his uncle cheers to that because we get the impression that his uncle has invested in helping him.
That's right.
Now, if a daughter arrives to bless our clan, I guess the shit will certainly hit the fan. But this I shall promise to thee, I'll never let her marry a guy like me.
That's for sure.
Still, if my child is the naughtiest of girls or the wildest of young men, I swear I'll be the best dad I can and never, ever get spooked again. But we see Jordan get up. She's very pregnant at this point and waddles over in her cute little maternity dress. And he leans down and she whispers in his ear that she bets she can spook him again. And she whispers that she's pregnant with twins. And so he is so excited and declares, twins, drinks are on the house. Of course, Uncle Pat, who's invested in this bar, is like, horrified. No, but it's a fun and celebratory moment to end on.
It is. It really is the perfect close. It seems as if he's learned from his mistakes. He's found love and he's achieving his dreams. And based on the little poem he shared, it definitely seems like he's now focused on his family and he knows he did wrong and he wants life to be better for them. Or that's what it seemed like to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, it's a sweet little ending. Although I was thinking, like, wouldn't they know they were having twins before this point?
I know, but she was big. So she might not have been as far along as we thought, but they would have known twins because they would have heard the heartbeat and all of that. But yeah.
But it was still cute.
It was
still
cute.
Really cute. All right, Missy, does it stand the test of time?
Well, Amanda, we actually talked about this movie off of recording time, which we rarely do, but you were so appalled by the movie.
Yes.
Right? Like you were like, this movie, I just couldn't. And I actually could take it or leave it. I mean, I love Tom Cruise as an actor in the movies. So, but what I thought would be fun in the spirit of Cocktail is if we summed it up with our own poem. What do you think?
Let's do it. I'm going to do the best I can. Let's do it.
All right. Real Sisters rewinds to the 80s for you. But this movie in today's world just wouldn't do. It feels more like a Lifetime or a Netflix show. We expected more of Cruise because we love him so.
Elizabeth Shue, though she's cute as can be, couldn't save the movie from not filling us with glee. Flair bartending drama, romance and fights. The movie, well, it somehow misses those cinematic heights.
Still, we'll raise a glass and toast to the fun because for better or worse, Cocktail's rewatch is done.
Now it's time to move on and give you some clues. Our next movie is a favorite. We can't wait to rewind and review.
That was fun. Okay, so are you ready? Here we go. Amanda, give us the first clue.
Clue 1. This movie stars an actor who dons a dress and a wig for most of the film.
Clue number 2. It's set in the world of soap operas with plenty of behind-the-scenes drama.
And clue 3. The lead character goes to great lengths to prove that sometimes you have to pretend to be someone else to get ahead.
If you think you know what it is, hit us up on social media and let us know your guesses. We can't wait to hear from you.
All right, real fans, don't forget to give us a 5-star review, subscribe to the podcast, and share it with your fellow movie buffs. Your support means the world to us. Until next time, keep rewinding those classics, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.